guessed. Perhaps not, because I'm sure you're all extremely sophisticated people, and perhaps you want to know what I'm talking about, but as some of you may suspect, it comes from the Marvel pictures. You see, there are the post-credit, the famous post-credit scenes from the Marvel pictures. When since I can defend myself saying that it's because I'm a father, so I have to see Marvel pictures with my son. It's not true. I would be quite a follower of those pictures before becoming a father. And as you may know, that final scenes after the credits are perhaps not only the most enjoyable part of the picture, but perhaps the only enjoyable part of the picture. I don't know why, but they work in some kind of something that renews the whole situation. Usually you finish kind of disappointed after watching a 2.5-hour picture of Marvel with all those CGI effects and everything, and you say, I'm never going to come back to see one of these pieces of shit. But you stay there and you get the post-credit scene, and you feel that perhaps this is some kind of hope beyond, and you go back. Well, I started watching those tricks, and I thought, well, since I'm a filmmaker too, that they would be perhaps as enjoyable as they are to watch, enjoyable to do myself. So I tried them, and it is very, very playful, a very playful situation. It's something, you see, finishing a picture is something that it's, of course, it's very pleasant, and it's a very fulfilling sentiment, but it has also a dying part. And when you do all that kind of codas, well, I don't know, perhaps we should experiment with that in our lives too, to make that kind of thing. Like, well, Jesus Christ did it, no? After the resurrection is quite a marvel post-credit scene, and if Lord himself did it, why not trying ourselves? It's what we've been doing in the last 2,000 years.
Following that,
Yes.
there's, for the people that have seen the 3 films, the films somehow all talk about a duel. There's constant duel, like the idea of a duel. There's a duel happening.
3 of them. You say that the 3 of them.
Yeah. Because even in the first one, you have this thing of the 2 parts. Like there's something about the duel, and it's like what's the writer of this?
What?
The constant duel that never finishes.
Conrad.
Yeah. There's something of that duel that I think that has to do to keep on making this movie.
Yeah, of course.
Keep on making this movie, and in the intertwining of the documentaries that you were asked to do, and then in a way, also as the codas are doing in each thing, fiction pouring out.
Well, it's very interesting, because of course, when you see, making this only picture that I was supposed to do lacked or had basically one danger, or a 2-part danger, which was the danger of, I don't know how to say it, frivolity or weakness, because we were, I was portraying friends, with always it's a danger, because when you portray your friends, you may have, and if they are especially artists, you might have some kind of a nasty thing of people like ¿cómo se dice? Lapping each other, or something which would expel the audience. So what are these guys trying to do? I'm just sitting watching some cool people speaking. It's something very disgusting about those kind of things. You see, like cool and rich. Not rich. They are, of course, they are. But like being speaking well of themselves. Something horrible, isn't it? But there was a second worry, which was not only because we were friends, but because of them specifically. And they are renowned as, in my opinion, unfairly, for being some kind of too cool. I don't know what like snobbish in a way. So it was very difficult to assume that this was a project that would be difficult to do, even though it was the opposite, because they were friends. No, it's more difficult to make a picture about your friends than to do it about your enemies, right? So I'm not saying that we became enemies for making the picture. I'm not saying that. I'm strongly not saying that. But when some kind of a unpleasant feeling came up, I thought, or I discovered that unpleasantness was useful for the picture. That I was not regretting that. I wouldn't say hatred, but well, let's say it. That I don't know. It was good for the picture. It was good. I would feel comfortable with that. And when we broke up, I found that the picture was telling us what to do. The picture was telling us, hey, you're no longer friends. You don't love each other anymore. The picture knew that. So I think that it's something that has to do with cinema. Mm. Perhaps cinema is about duels.
Yeah.
Not always, of course, but
maybe because maybe it's not Christ, but it's Judas, the character that maybe you're more interested in.
I don't know, like Scorsese, but I don't know. But Judas and Christ, perhaps they are dueling, right? There's a duel, yeah. I hope I'm not Judas myself. And who is she? Or that it's a two-headed Judas. I don't know. Let's quit the religious thing.
Please. But so let's go to more concrete things. That is, having seen your films, it is quite clear, especially if you see the other two also, the presence of words not so much said, and of course we're always talking, but the difference between the voiceover that populate your other films, and here there's something about words being written, words
shooting words.
Yeah, shooting words. So I wonder what was that connection, that change, that dialogue between the voiceover and the written word.
Well, it's as you have perhaps noticed yourself, it's very pleasant to shoot letters and to shoot words, isn't it? I don't know how come the masters of yesteryear in cinema would not find out how grateful it is to shoot No, they would use the intertitles, but not as performers in a way. I think when I did like very much some kind of a rhythm that letters typed in a computer or in a screen on a screen would have. I really thought that when we would see Glenn Wood play all the variations, and when we were typing, for me they were like players or dancers, like in a Star Williams picture. I really would think that there was some kind of cinematic power in those situations. So I don't know, but I would believe strongly in that potential grace of letters being part of the thing. And I don't know, it's difficult to explain. There's nothing underneath that, but I think that they are fair players.
It's more clear in the previous two movies. I'm sorry for.
Yes, in this one.
Here you see more like when the colors are
yeah.
so on, but in the other movies you see the type.
You see the typing, the guy typing the poems.
Yeah. So and I feel that it gives a sense of the intimate,
yes, I agree,
and a sense of a present tense that in the other movies maybe the voiceover is a sort of cricket that is telling you this epic. Mm-hmm. Well, here I think that in writing it puts you into a different time.
Yes, it's true.
It's challenging.
It's true because those things, those paragraphs, those sentences, those ideas were written at present time.
Yeah.
It wasn't that I was thinking of them in the moment of being shot.
Yeah.
There was no previous script, so I don't know if that happens, but the idea was to show how a page is written in the very moment, and when you see the mistakes and they are actually taking place. So that's one of the things that cinema have to give us. It's the only form of art where you can see the mistake taking place. Well, of course, you can see the mistake, the pentimenti in the paintings and everything, but you don't see Velázquez changing his mind when you see Las Meninas. Well, here you don't see Velázquez either, but you see someone changing his mind. So I think that is a whole territory to discover the mistake in pictures.
Yeah, still, I feel that it gave me the feeling as I was in your company. No, in other, I traveled.
You were in my company.
Yeah, no, I remember watching not that far away from here, La Flor, and I felt that I was like invited to a house that I was inhabiting for a couple of hours. Well, here I feel that
I remember that you wrote that to me, that you were saying that being for a lot of time with friends. That was perhaps the most beautiful thing I've heard of a picture made by myself. It was very nice. It was the point is they were actually your friends. So what about these pictures where you are not friends of the Mondongo people? Invited to a quite hostile.
No, I'm with you. That's interesting to maybe ask the people that don't know you and the experience of watching the film, if they don't know you,
if they got
give a sense of
intimacy.
You know? So I don't know. There's a funny thing happening that is different, and I appreciate it quite much in these moves that you're making now, in comparison to the other ones, and to the Historias Extraordinarias, Balnearios, and La Flor. Before opening, I guess that you have questions. We have time? Yeah, okay. So if you have questions, you just raise your hand and the mic goes to you. Okay. You have one and two.
Two questions.
Thank you so much for those movies. I really enjoyed seeing my hometown. I'm from Massoud, so. I've always wanted to ask you.
You're from Massoud?
Yes, I am from
Really?
Massoud, yes.
It's the place a place that appears there. It's a city. That's very nice.
It is. Not only in this film, I think here it's perhaps more clear, but all throughout your work, I've always wondered how you use like chapters and a narrator, and even today, in this film, you don't talk about making a biopic, you speak about a portrait, right? So, in a way, like a lot of this structures come from literature and the visual arts, and so I wonder what your own relationship to reading and even this very slow temporality of your films, resembles more the temporality of reading or of just like staying with something that moves in a very slow way. So I've always wondered what's your relationship to literature and how it informs your work, if in any way.
Well, of course, I'm very familiar with reading and with books, and quite familiar with visual arts too, especially painting. But that familiarity that comes from my whole life, my father was a writer and he would be an art critic too, so I spent my whole life quite near to those forms of art. But that has nothing to do, because there are many. But that familiarity, that's feeling close to those things, brings an intimacy. And an intimacy would bring also some kind of, I wouldn't say disrespect, but the lack of some kind of a stiff respect to those things. So I would feel, when you don't have, let's keep the Matias figure of the house. When you feel at home in a house, really at home, you don't ask permission to do things, you know, you just go by and you just sit without asking, and you take things. Perhaps the owner of the house doesn't like you to do that, but you do it anyway. And I think that the familiarity with books, for example, gives me that, I don't know, that small dare of using the proceeds of literature for cinema. It's just that, because evidently literature has much more experience in narrating and telling things, so it has more proceeds. So I would just borrow without any guilt. And it doesn't mean any kind of snobbish thing, I think. It's just that I take them because I need them. That it's something more like a family thing.
Thank you.
Musician. Music speaks.
Thank you. You asked a question earlier today about this friendship ended, and you wanted to know if we could spot why that happened, and you weren't entirely sure.
Mm-hmm.
And
You have an answer.
I have a question in the form of an answer. The second film made me incredibly uncomfortable as an artist who's worked with friends and the friendship has ended because you sort of learn that there's some sort of emotional intelligence conflict, like you view things differently than you expected because you're in a different field, and you examine portraits in which the subject is self-aware and then, you know, becomes a buffoon or as a character in some way. You go in looking to exploit that aim and, aware that they will be self-aware, create this story around the situation, which they fail to directly achieve. It's fascinating in the third film that Pilar Gamboa is such a better Juliana than Juliana is, that she struggles with Clarissimo, and Pilar gets it the very first time because she's a professional actor but also on your wavelength. And there's the sequences where Manuel is, you know, laughing because the light comes on, or they're struggling to learn the lines. And my awkward question is, did you discover in this process something about those two friends of yours that in then working in your field as a writer and director with these two friends, there was something they didn't quite understand about either cinema or the way you approach cinema that made them maybe not take it as seriously and submit themselves to the idea that you had? Did they, in a crass way, did they not respect cinema in the way that you might have hoped?
Oh. Yes, it can be that, yeah.
Okay.
But I can say something else, but they would think of cinema like something that was working for them and not the opposite, which was the evident situation. They were not working for cinema. I can't do that. I can't work with, I can befriend or someone who doesn't disrespect what I have gave my life to. I think you got something there.
So, hello, hola. If I remember correctly, like the very last scene of La Flor, we have the camera oscura, also made by Inés Castella.
Sí.
Obviously this one is about painting. So materiality and color and editing processes are super important, especially in this third part. I would say, Matias, in Tu Me Abrazas, in like You Born Me, materiality, like the 8mm and editing process and color are also super important. Would you both say there's any particular reason you are thinking more about those processes? You mentioned earlier CGI. Maybe does it have to do with like an answer or
Saying
resistance?
you're suggesting that we are.
I'm just asking why. Is there any particular reason?
No, perhaps you are suggesting. You are suggesting. You are suggesting that we are using our hands because it's something that it's slowly living motion picture business. Perhaps, I don't know.
For me,
Perhaps we are getting older too. Yeah. I don't know. When you get older, I don't know, you start doing those things like an old lady that starts, I don't know how to say it, knitting. I don't know. Perhaps it's that. We became old ladies who knit. Yes, but it's true. You start to leave your head and to inhabit your body, your hands. Yes, I need my hands to be part of the picture. In my case, I guess it's his case too, I don't know.
no, in my case, I needed that to go more slowly. It helped me to slow down. I needed more time to think and to find the thing, and going to 16mm and waiting for the lab and trying this and trying that, slow down processes, so it allowed me to think twice, and so on. So it's a matter of like speed.
Difference.
Yes.
Different strokes. But I guess you're right. Of course, there's something of the numbers which invade everything today that suggest a resistance from old-time filmmakers. I think we can be considered in that way, old-time filmmakers or filmmakers that have been, I don't know, that have learned their skills from old-time filmmakers. I don't know. I think there's something about that is important for us. Brodsky is asking it.
I'm curious about if Mondongo saw the film, and also if...
Yes, of course, many times, obsessively.
And if the people that commissioned to make this film...
Yes, everybody, of course, everybody saw it many times. No, the story of this picture was very full of dangers too. The first time that the second part was screened, it was last year, around this same time of the year in ¿cómo se llama? Pamplona in Spain, and it was she would forbid me to show the picture. She said, I don't want this picture to be shown ever. And I said, well, they have the tickets. I have the tickets. I have to give the tickets back. Yes, she said. And he who's always some kind of more, I don't know, brainy or whatever, or still, he said, well, you can go and show it for this only time. So I had the experience of being in front of an audience saying, this is the only time that you'll see this picture, because it's the only time that this picture is going to be screened. That happened. And then when everybody was quite touched by the thing, and when they learned that this thing happened and everybody was touched, I'm not saying they are idiots or whatever, they allowed part 3 to happen. So they were like losing their prejudice, but yes, they even would suggest or they would demand changes. Some of them we allowed, but it was quite an edition fight. Yes, they are completely aware of it. The last discussion we had for the screening in Buenos Aires, when Juliana insults me in a strong way, she wanted to have a beep. Last 2 weeks ago, I said, well, no, that's it. I'm not putting a beep. And she said, but it was my birthday, and the message with the beep thing came. And I said, well, I can't believe it. I really felt, I'm speaking right now in front of you, and you might think that I'm quite at ease with the thing. But I must tell you, it was like something that drew me to the depth of the ocean, all this thing. I would cry, and when she said that she wanted to put the beep, it took me again. So I said, okay, no beep. If you don't want to show the picture, don't show it. I'm not putting it. It's very difficult. It was very difficult. It was the most difficult thing I've ever done. Sorry about confession, but perhaps everybody was thinking that I was some kind of a joker or something, but I have my sentiments too. Well, you've seen that, perhaps. Any other question?
Yes. I have a question. I'm interested in something that's present in these three films that pulls it in a different direction from materiality, which is the internet. And there is, of course, the guy from Letterboxd that gets considerable attention in the film. But it was also very interesting to me to think about your previous films through this kind of digressive, hyperlinked experience of browsing the web that you're illustrating. That is so much part of this film. So I'm very curious about how that came to become part of these three films. And how that is part of your creative process.
Yeah. I think there's something which is called desktop movies or something like that. Perhaps I'm part of that.
You're part of
The
this.
master, the Griffith of desktop movies. I don't know why we use internet all the time. So why not? Perhaps, you see, I was talking with a friend at the beginning that said, that remarked the thing that of leaving the WhatsApp group. Of course, it is a cinema which is mainly about violence or has invented somehow one type of violence. No? Violence is not the same after cinema, of course. And it's all the time trying to find new ways of showing the violence in ordinary life. Well, how come no one thought of showing how violent it is to leave a WhatsApp group? Isn't it? It's well, and when I did that, and then a few weeks ago I saw Matias' last picture, and he was portraying too the renaming of some characters. So, and I thought it's the same idea. One is violent, and the other one is the disguise. I don't know, it's a mask, and you can put yourself. Well, those things are perhaps unlike we have always felt that they are the enemies of cinema. Perhaps all those ships that we carry all the time, perhaps they can be performers. I don't know, we're trying to deal with that, but I don't know, perhaps they're not so bad as elements of beauty. Let's hope that. And also the YouTube, I don't know when, there's one part, the Glenn Gould YouTube moment where it's quite documentary, it's uncut, you see. I just would drift looking for that, and I would find that was quite realistic in the Bazin sense of the thing. Just and everything was like developing and growing in a very danceful way, you know. And well, let's start dealing with those new things from a more, I don't know, gallant perspective. I think it's worth trying.
I think that it's good to wrap up
Is it?
this
Well,
Q&A by inviting people to see a film that hasn't screened here in New York yet, and that actually, I think that is the reason why the Letterboxd person writes that
that's the letter.
review. No, but maybe you can invite people to come and see Clorindo Testa. That is a film that you did prior to this, if I'm not wrong.
Absolutely, I absolutely would invite them too, but
March
perhaps
11th.
you should invite them because
I'm inviting you to come to see Clorindo Testa.
Clorindo Testa. It's a picture about
Anthology.
it's this kind of destructive picture. Yeah. Yes, go to the anthology, and I'm not going to be there, even if
we plan it.
even if I would stay here for being there. They would change the day, so I'm not going to be there, which is probably better for all of them. Well,
You can read their comments on Letterboxd.
yes. And you can tell if the Letterboxd guy was right or wrong. Well, thank you very much for being here.